Right now, when you come out of architecture school, so many are craving that possibility of fame and celebrity-style buildings. And if you look at the icons of our profession, I kind of look at it like this, and I grabbed this from Mr. Rose's talk the other day. We wanted flying cars, instead we got 140 characters. I look at it like this. We wanted a universal sustainable shelter. Instead, we got fancy shapes and parametric modeling. I stood on a stage in New York at the Innovation Conference for Architectural Record, which is the big US publication, and I stood on stage with Bill Baker, who is the man who designed Burj Khalifa, and a whole host of my heroes in this industry. And they talked about parametric modeling and BIM, building information modeling systems, these things that are great techniques for how we do our work, but they're not meaningful for how we deliver for mankind. And I think that's the shift that we have to make. And if you look at the most famous individual in my profession for the last 20 years, and what many people are chasing in the mindset of what is the exciting new architecture of the world, this is what you get. And I'm going to get in a little trouble for this when I'm going to do it. Because I'm actually pretty upset about it. I think this is important to me. So, I think when we look at that need, that human need, and we look at that footprint, we're really creating this discussion. Now, I did put a little caveat in here that just I wanted to add. I sent this talk to my office for them to upload it, and I got this immediate photograph of the screen of my computer saying, "Are you sure you want to put this on stage?" Isn't that just ridiculous? But here's the problem, right? It's more than just the direction that our profession are trying to take. It's actually more about how we look at the importance of buildings in our society. And I think the lost voice of the prominence and importance of buildings in our society, and this statistic really brings it out. This is the US spending on innovation as a federal government. So remember the stat I gave you. Almost half of energy, almost half of greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings. And you notice there's no little house icon up there. Buildings fall somewhere between the light bulb and the beaker, and 0.0001% of US innovation spending goes to buildings and building sciences. Biggest problem, smallest investment. Why doesn't that happen? Well, it's because architects are mom and pop shops. We're small offices of 20 people, of 3 people, and the biggest we have are 1,000. There is no Ford Motor Car company that's going to change our industry and say, I'm going to start over with the design of cars or start over with the design of buildings. It doesn't exist. We grow organically with our ideas, and therefore we share, and we Creative Commons, and we try to spread these ideas, but it is a very slow-moving industry. And our footprint is so much bigger. But there are, I think, some changes. And I think this is just a small one. I'm going to get into wood skyscrapers for real. And as I said, people kind of thought I was crazy when we started talking about it, but I remind them that the first skyscraper in the world was only 10 stories tall. 4 years later, and people were afraid to walk under it, we had the Eiffel Tower, which reshaped the imagination of every city on Earth to get steel and concrete buildings. But there are these codes that developed over the last century that started to tell us that we couldn't build wood buildings very tall, and so we weren't allowed to. The British Columbia Building Code, BCBC, said in 2008 that I could only build a building that was 4 stories tall. And then there was all this work in BC. It's a forestry economy, so people thought, yeah, we need to sell more wood, so let's build higher. And we were allowed to build 6, and everybody got really excited. And I thought to myself, yeah, but my buddy Andrew Waugh already built 9 in the UK, which was the world's tallest contemporary wood building. It's not very tall. But he'd already done it by the time our code changed. And more importantly, I was riding my bike across Japan with my son at the time, and I got this text message from my office, and they said, hey, this is really cool. Our code changed. Isn't it great? And I said, yeah, but the problem is I just walked out of a building that's this tall, and more importantly, it was built 1,400 years ago in wood. We have a problem. And obviously, we have solutions. So we developed something we call FFTT, which everybody at the online architecture publication Tree Hugger really made fun of because it stands for Finding the Forest Through the Trees. I wanted to give it a jargony title. But it's a new system of building with wood, and we've been developing all kinds of different systems and testing them and looking at them from fire performance and acoustic and structural performance and designing 30 stories in Vancouver, which is high earthquake, and making it work. And what we found is the more we did this, actually, the easier it got. And now, thankfully, it's been embraced. It's been embraced by the province of BC, and we are actually building now what will be the world's tallest wood building. We just broke ground on it about 3 weeks ago. It's not very tall. We're not even breaking a sweat. It's a problem. But it's actually a wood design and innovation center in northern BC. More importantly, the Canadian federal government got on board with this and put up an RFQ that's out this summer for any developer and architect in Canada to try to build tall wood buildings. They'll actually help fund it. That is huge. That's a huge shift for us from really people thinking we were in the wilderness with this idea to the federal government coming on board in just a year and a half. So we're excited. Things are going to change quickly now, and that's unheard of in our profession in this kind of way. Why it's important is because if I built that building, that Wood Innovation Design Center, in concrete, it would have a concrete footprint from its construction phase, not once it's built, but for the making of the concrete. And the wood would, as an alternative, would sequester. And the net difference between the two is about 2,300 tons of carbon, which is about the equivalent of taking 450 cars off the road. Now let's leap back to that statistic of 100,000 people a day needing a new home. Build them in concrete, build them in wood, and what happens? That story matters, right? The choice of material matters. 3 billion people needing a new home.